Everybody's sleep need is genetically determined, and you can't change it. There's no changing it. And so if you have been dealt a hand where you need 9 hours of sleep and you're comparing yourself to somebody who naturally needs 7 hours of sleep, it's an unfair comparison to start with.
Sleep. We spend nearly 1/3 of our lives doing it. That's about 26 years and closer to 33 years if you count the time spent trying to fall asleep. And yet, we rarely talk about how essential it is for success and high performance. As a parent, I know this firsthand. The sleepless nights I endured didn't just affect my energy, they impacted my postpartum mental health, my ability to show up at work, my creativity, and my overall sense of joy. Today, I'm sitting down with renowned sleep expert and Duke professor, Dr. Sujay Kansagra. In this conversation, we're looking at sleep from both the adult and the children's perspective. You'll learn how to support your child's sleep without creating dependency, why high performers can't outwork their biology when it comes to sleep, how to work with your biology instead of against it so you can improve your energy, focus, and mental health without burning out. So, listen in. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well-being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Dr. Sujay Kansagra is a professor at Duke and the director of Duke University's Pediatric Neurology Sleep Medicine program. He's popularly known as That Sleep Doc on social media, where he has over 700,000 followers. He is also the inventor of Lullabee Smart Crib Mattress. Dr. Kansagra is the author of numerous peer-reviewed research publications and 5 books, including My Child Won't Sleep, a high-yield step-by-step guide to fixing common sleep issues in children of all ages, infants through adolescence. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Kansagra.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I started following you on social media a while back during one of my late night scrolls. And one of the best things I discovered was your humor. I was just sharing with you before we press record. It's really weird to actually see you live one-on-one, and I'm not actually watching one of your videos. What I sort of really related with was being in that season of parenting where that meme fits me perfectly. Everything is fine and there's like fire everywhere, pretty much represents how I feel when I'm parenting my children. You share such valuable content online, so I want to start with that. What are the top 3 most ridiculous pieces of sleep advice that self-proclaimed wellness influencers are actually giving people?
Yeah, I think the most common one is probably just trying to muscle yourself out of sleeping. There's the hustle culture mentality of I'm going to sleep when I die, and the science certainly supports making sure you sleep adequately now so that you don't die. The need to, if you want to be productive in life, if you want to be a high performer, I think you have to give your brain a chance to kind of reset and rejuvenate. Super, super important. So I think that's probably the biggest one. I'm seeing a lot of supplement kind of use as always out there in the sleep medicine world. So magnesium seems to be the one that's hot right now. Every few years it just kind of changes, and valerian root and what have you. And so I think the important thing to understand is that the goal is to find the underlying sleep issue as opposed to doing kind of just a blanket approach and not truly getting down to the core problem. And then the last issue I would say that's more pediatric focused is oftentimes a lot of leaning on towards melatonin, and again, a supplement standpoint, whereas for really young children, the problems tend to be behavioral, and we have to address them with behavioral approaches. So those are probably the 3 most common kind of misconceptions that are thrown out there.
I love that. And I feel like I just read your post before logging in about melatonin today. So I'm going to do a little bit of a rapid fire round with you. I'm going to throw some of the most Googled sleep topics because that's I just sat and I pulled up all these topics that people are searching on, and I really want your hot take. Ready?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
So you mentioned melatonin. Let's double click on that. Yes or no, and why?
Yeah, if you have a circadian rhythm issue, it's a yes. So if you have delayed sleep-wake phase for teenagers, jet lag, shift work, it's a yes. Otherwise, for chronic insomnia or behavioral insomnia for children, it's a no.
Okay. Magnesium glycinate, yes or no, and why?
It does not match up to the hype. The data is very limited, mostly in the elderly population. We have zero data in pediatrics. And so it's a lukewarm no.
Lukewarm, no. Okay. Screen time before bed, is it that bad, really?
Depends on how things are going for you. Many people can watch TV and then it helps them relax and they fall asleep fine, wake up fine in the morning. If it's not a problem for you, then it's not a problem that needs to be fixed. Others are more sensitive to light exposure and they tend to have delayed timing tendencies for their body clock. In that situation, you want to be more cautious. But I can't give that a general no. It's a maybe, depending on your situation.
This is the problem with evidence-based medicine. It sometimes makes so much sense. This is the first time I'm hearing that. It's that it's not like a blanket all up. No. Okay. Thank
That's
you.
right. It's not like a death sentence for your sleep, right? I mean, everybody's so different. And so we're gently reintroducing the concept of a TV in your bedroom for adults if they find it relaxing and calming.
All right. So this is a heavy one as a mother. Co-sleeping, dangerous
Mhm.
or misunderstood?
Yeah, so bed sharing during infancy, we know carries risks. So there's nothing safer than having your child in a safe sleep space, whether that's a bassinet or a crib. And so from a sleep safety standpoint, it's a no. There are lots of nuances here, and there are lots of things you can do for potential harm reduction. Bed sharing, when it comes to sleeping on a sofa or a recliner, is much, much worse than bed sharing on a firm, flat, no pillows, no blankets mattress with an adult that's not smoking or doing alcohol or drugs. So there are levels of safety. The safest environment is still a crib or bassinet on their back with nothing else in it.
I had a flashback moment to my residency when I had my first daughter, and she wasn't sleeping.
Mhm.
I wasn't sleeping. I didn't know what I was doing, and I would just sit and stare at her. She was in her
Mhm.
bassinet, and I went to my pediatrics appointment. My pediatrician said, "Do you actually plan on graduating from residency or doing anything else in your life? You can't just watch that baby."
Yes, it can be all consuming. And there's something very real about, just the nature of anxious parenting. Postpartum anxiety, of course, very real, but there is something about watching a child repeatedly checking to make sure they're breathing. That's somewhat probably instinctual in human beings to make sure their child is okay. Mm,
Well, thank you for validating that.
absolutely.
Sleep training, does it cause harm?
No. The debate is wild on social media. The empiric data, there's actually no debate. And people like to create a debate, and that's fine. The data shows there's no debate at all. There are clear short, medium-term benefits. There's no long-term sleep benefit based on the best data we have, and there's no data indicating any harm to children when it comes to attachment, when it comes to cortisol. There's no data indicating harm. So the data is pretty clear on that.
Wow. And just like as a side note, I might not have read this study, but you might have. Is there any studying parents impact when they do sleep training or like when we're doing these
Absolutely. There's
interventions?
a large amount of data, actually, particularly around maternal mood scores, is what's the most commonly studied metric for parents. And yes, maternal mood scores regularly improve in these studies when it comes to sleep training or behavioral interventions. There's data that supports marital bliss, right? So improved marital satisfaction, which only makes sense when people are sleeping. That tends to be better. There's actually a paper showing improved bond with your child after sleep training, which everybody argues, oh, it's going to hurt your attachment and your bond. Well, if everybody's rested and happy, naturally there's going to be a better bond. So all of it from a common sense standpoint makes sense. But we like to create fun debates in the social media world and yell at each other. That's just the nature of social media.
I mean, I can definitely say that when I was so sleep deprived, I feel like that had a big role to play in my postpartum depression and anxiety both the time. So thank you for sharing that data.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually one of the metrics that we check. You had mentioned the Lullaby at the start. When we tested a Lullaby, we looked at parents' sleepiness scores and mood scores. And both of those improved when the child's sleep improved when they used Lullaby. So it's a really important metric when it comes to research.
I'm very excited to talk more about that because I really wish it was there when I was going through that phase of my parenting. Moving back to the rapid fire, naps for
Let's
toddlers. How long is too long? Is there a graduated age range that we should be following?
I usually say don't wake up your child unless it's interfering with the sleep schedule at nighttime. Otherwise, there's no nap that's too long. Once children are consolidated down to one nap, they might sleep 30 minutes, they might sleep 3 hours. As long as you have a nice wake window prior to sleep at nighttime and they're falling asleep well at night and waking up refreshed, there's no nap that's too long.
Teenagers and early school start times. Should we be fighting this hard?
Absolutely. And we try to fight it pretty hard from a sleep medicine standpoint. And the data here is also very clear. If you delay school start times, children do better in a variety of ways, including getting more sleep, better mood scores. It is clearly better for them based on their biological sleep physiology. We do better when we're teenagers with delayed starts because our body clocks are naturally later. So that's 100% absolute yes, delayed school start times for middle and high school. It shouldn't start before 8:30. That's the goal.
Okay. Alcohol helping you sleep, is that a myth or a fact?
Alcohol will certainly help you fall asleep because it is a central nervous system depressant. It is a net negative on your sleep because although you might fall asleep faster, it's a sedated sleep as opposed to natural sleep. And then you tend to withdraw from that alcohol during the night. You have more frequent awakenings, not to mention having to use the bathroom more often and potentially even worsening sleep apnea due to muscle tone. Alcohol is a net negative on your sleep.
All right. Weighted blankets, are they worth all the hype?
This is also very individualized. The data is not that great when it comes to weighted blankets, particularly for children on the autism spectrum is where we have the most data, but parents seem to like it. And so we say it's worth trying, especially for those that do have those sensory preferences, those sensory tendencies for pressure. It's certainly worth a try, as long as you're not using it for infants, of course, because they shouldn't have anything in their sleep space.
Mouth taping. Please tell us what you actually think about this one.
Mouth taping is also a no-no unless you have treated sleep apnea and you're using it to prevent air leakage from your mouth because you're using a nasal CPAP. You know, we have two areas from our body in which we can breathe, our nose and our mouth. And if your mouth happens to be open at nighttime, it's usually because you have an issue with obstruction in your nasal passages. So then if you seal off the other orifice that's helping you breathe, then you can really get yourself into trouble, particularly if you have sleep apnea or really bad congestion from allergies. So my approach is if you're having breathing problems at night, get your breathing assessed with a sleep study and get that treated before you consider mouth tape to help keep your mouth closed.
Yeah, when I searched that one, I was like, wow, what's happening these days?
Yes. I do think some people could use mouth tape during the day, but that's a different situation.
I didn't put that one up front, but I'm thinking about it because I get asked this question quite a bit when I'm working surrounding like health and well-being related questions, especially from the worried well. Like when we talk about
Yeah.
wearables, like we can have infinite amount of data, all the rings. I don't want to name all the rings, but so the wearables,
Mhm.
are they helpful, or what are your thoughts on that?
I love wearables in that they increase our awareness about sleep and our sleep patterns. And I know people that use it in a very strategic way. I'm going to try to take out alcohol and let's see what happens to my sleep patterns. I'm going to try a different temperature in my room and let's see if I can figure out a pattern. And so if you're using it to experiment and raise awareness about your own sleep, I'm all about it. If you get too hyped up and obsessed about the number that it's producing and the data that's giving you, I would take a step back and say, is this helping me or hurting me? And there's a very real phenomenon called orthosomnia, where you get so anxious about the numbers that your smart device is producing that your sleep paradoxically worsens. And so we don't want to get to that point. You know, people have been sleeping just fine for millions of years without having trackers telling us every bit of nuanced data regarding our sleep physiology. So use it appropriately and with caution.
I love that recommendation. So now I'm going to shift focus a little bit. You wrote amazing books and you're so well researched, especially the book My Child Won't Sleep. And you invented a smart crib mattress, which we're going to talk about as well. First, I would love for you to share like 3 common reasons you are noticing children aren't sleeping. Again, these are lots of high achiever parents in the audience that are listening, and they potentially are struggling with some of these things.
Yeah, I can tell you the 3 main causes, and they're all in the environmental and behavioral realm. So at the very basic, we have poor sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene are the things in your environment or your behaviors that lead up to bedtime that can hurt or help your sleep. So, not having a nighttime routine, not having a consistent wake up time, too much light exposure for certain individuals, caffeine exposure, the temperature is not the temperature is too hot or too cold. These are all sleep hygiene factors that should be addressed and changed. So that's the number one issue. Number two is for infants. It's usually sleep onset associations. And by that, I mean anything in your environment that you associate with the process of falling asleep. Your brain learns that's how I go from wake to sleep. And so if you get accustomed to having the TV on, for example, as an adult, it may be harder for you to fall back asleep with the TV on for some people. Or if you have an audiobook going, you might need that again when you wake up during a normal nighttime awakening. For infants, older infants, super common to have parental intervention to help them sleep. It's needed when you're really young. As you get older, it can become a dependency such that during a normal awakening, you require that same intervention to help you sleep. So that's behavioral insomnia of childhood, sleep onset association subtype. That's the formal name. And then the third thing is for slightly older children, for toddlers, oftentimes there's limit setting issues. So parental limit setting issues in which toddlers are naturally learning to push back at bedtime and challenge the limits that have been imposed on them. And this is how they learn what's right and what's wrong. And so they begin to say things like, "Oh, I need another hug. I need another glass of water. Can you check my room for monsters, et cetera, et cetera." So long as a child is not anxious, usually this involves just setting more firm limits at nighttime and being really consistent in your approach. So those are the top three issues for young children that can't sleep.
Thank you for sharing those. And then as I am listening to those, I'm also wondering that if we are unable as the adults to set those boundaries with ourselves and recognize that our sleep
Yeah.
matters, I feel like those patterns potentially also start presenting in the way we interact with our children.
Absolutely. I think we are certainly model setters, right? So we have to model the behavior that we want to see. And some of the challenges that we have as parents, children may naturally develop even without necessarily modeling behavior, just because there's lots of genetics at play when it comes to sleep and temperament, mood, hyperactive tendencies, insomnia. So yes, some of the challenges that you experience may be mimicked in your child as well.
Let's talk about Lullaby. What does it do and why should every parent get one now?
Well, I consider it a smart crib mattress that teaches infants how to sleep better. That's really the main goal. And what it does is it looks like an ordinary crib mattress. It's meant to replace a crib mattress, and it has sensors. It knows when the child is awake and crying. It produces output, gentle output in the form of vibration and sound, only when your child is awake and crying, to help soothe them back to sleep. And after your child falls back asleep, it slowly decreases right back down to zero. So it's really there to help when your child needs. But the unique thing about Lullaby is that it actually tracks the child's historical sleep patterns, and it is adaptive to each and every child, such that when they are sleeping well and their sleep metrics dictate, it starts to slowly wean the child off of this output automatically. It starts to decrease all the way down to very low levels in hopes of the child becoming an independent soother and a confident, independent sleeper. So it's temporary use of technology to create a long-lasting behavioral change. That's the goal. And then it's there for all the regressions that occur during childhood. Because, kids' sleep's going to regress. You go on a trip, there's teething, there's an illness. And so even if your child is sleeping great, Lullaby is still there when those regressions occur to help get your kids right back on track.
Yeah, I needed that one.
I did too. It took us 8 years. Literally, we've been working on this for 8 years at Duke, and it took a while to make sure we got it right. And so we missed a lot of kids, but hopefully for the next generation of parents, we make it a little bit easier for them.
That's fascinating. I know that I'll probably be seeing you on Shark Tank soon with that, with Lullaby.
Shark Tank, if you're listening, I'd love to be on Shark Tank. This is but sleep is my life, and this was a passion project. And at the end of the day, the goal was to give parents another tool in the toolkit, another potential way of helping the kids sleep, yet keeping them in their safest sleep environment.
I mean, I have so many questions just specific to you coming up with the idea. I know this is exactly
Yeah.
what you do. You're a sleep expert, and this is
Yes.
absolutely in your wheelhouse. But a lot of people notice problems, but they just go about their day. What propelled you to actually go forward, take this action, and create Lullaby?
Well, I hate to do this. Things get very dark very quickly when I talk about kind of the origin story here, but I will tell you, briefly, this idea was in my head for a very, very long time. And I'm not a business person. I'm not an entrepreneur. I am a clinician that's in the clinic, just seeing patients, with pediatric sleep disorders. And so I was waiting for somebody to invent the product because it seemed so obvious to me. I was like, this is what we do in behavioral sleep medicine. This is how we help children sleep better. Somebody will invent it. And nobody was inventing this particular product. It seemed like all the products were creating more dependency on technology. And my goal was we have to have less dependency. So I knew the idea was going to apply what we know about science directly to the child. So that was good. And what really kind of kicked me into gear was I'm a child neurologist by training before I did my sleep medicine training. So we cover the hospital for child neurology issues. And there are some really sad things that happen to children in scenarios where they are either put in unsafe sleep environments or because everybody in the house is sleep deprived and at their wits' end. Some really sad and dark things that happen to children. And I saw just in one too many situations where I said, I have to make this. There's no real choice anymore. Like I have to make it, even though I have no idea how the business world works. I have no idea how engineering and product development works. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out because we got to get this product out there. And that's how it started.
I'm so glad that the person who is making this product is you, who has had those deeply passionate experiences where, as a physician, we get to have that front seat on so many of these moments that are going through humans' lives. And I'm so glad that you're doing this.
Yeah. And my goal here, if we can make life 5% easier for families, then let's do it. It's just become an accepted part of the human experience that it's going to be misery and sleep deprivation. And, and then we have social media, everybody sharing their highlight reels. So everybody thinks it's so easy. No, raising an infant is an absolute crap show. It is a grueling crap show. And if we can make this 5% better for families, and make their lives more joyful, gosh, let's do it, all the while keeping kids safe, let's do it. So win-win for everybody.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. So share what stage you are in right now. I saw that you were out on social media delivering Lullaby directly to people's homes. I was seeing you do all this amazing fun stuff. Where are we right now?
We just launched. We actually just launched. It's been like probably 2 months into it, right? So we developed a small inventory for our initial launch. And we are in the stage of getting lots of feedback from customers. And it has been wonderful. It's like I've put my baby out into the world, right? I nurtured this thing for like 8 years. And I'm like, let's see what Lullaby can do now. And the feedback has been so amazing and just like kind of heartwarming to be like, gosh, yes, something we created is helping you in your home and keeping your baby happy and comfortable. And as a pediatric neurologist or a pediatrician or just as a human being, like it just makes you feel good, knowing people are benefiting from something that you made to make everybody's lives easier. So we're out there. We are in the market, in the baby sleep space.
Love that. Very inspiring. And I'm going to, of course, link to your social media here on the show notes. And for those people who want to follow the journey along, absolutely also tag along. It's actually very inspiring to see you create that idea and walk us through that process as well. Very good.
Yeah, no, it's been a fun experience. I've learned a lot, and I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Like I was never meant to be here, but hey, we're gonna roll with it, see what happens.
I was recently looking at a paper that another amazing physician entrepreneur, her name is Manju Dawkins. She's a dermatologist, and she's created a painless needle delivery system. She shared about physician entrepreneurs and like the businesses actually that this start are more successful, and the success rates, contrary to what is told to physicians, like you're bad at business. It's actually the other way. So it was very interesting to see that.
Yeah, well, I think people also kind of relate to authenticity and products coming from a good place. It's not a product because someone's like, oh, this has nothing to do with my life, but I think it's going to be out there and make some money. No, I think if it comes from people's lived experiences and they're doing it in an authentic way, I think people are very good at seeing through what's quackery and what are money grabs versus what has been made with authenticity and, a passion for the problem. And so I think physicians naturally, come from a area of passion for the problem.
I love that perspective. Absolutely. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, and now we're going to focus
Mhm.
on the parents of these babies, all the high achievers that are listening, that are believing what you had said earlier, that they're going to sleep when they die, or they
Mhm.
are extremely, they want to rest, but they just don't know how to. Because I've also
Yeah.
seen plenty of people, whether it was burnout, whether it was workaholism, whether it was some other sort of ism that was just under the guise of work ethic, that they have
Yes.
decided that sleeplessness is a badge of honor. I'll share a little bit about myself.
Right.
I actually went to my physician coach and I asked my coach to fix my need for sleep so that I could,
Mhm.
like, what can I do so that I don't feel this bad when I'm doing ICU nights? Like, everyone around me seems to, like, they're doing a good job. I'm the only one who seems to need sleep. Can we cure that? So what
Yeah.
is any pearls of wisdom for people who think like me, my past version? Hopefully I know I have had some advancement in my healing journey from that point.
Yes. Let me start off with some of the basics of sleep physiology that are important to know. Because in the world of high performers, it's only natural that we do this comparison game. We're like, my boss is sending me emails at 2 a.m. and I know is out running, she's running 10 miles in the morning at 8 a.m. How does she do that? Right. And I will tell you that everybody's sleep need is genetically determined and you can't change it. There's no changing it. And so if you have been dealt a hand where you need 9 hours of sleep and you're comparing yourself to somebody who naturally needs 7 hours of sleep, it's an unfair comparison to start with. And I also hate to frame it this way, but there's probably a reason why she is your boss. She may have gotten that to that level because she has 2 extra hours in the day that you naturally won't because of your natural sleep need. I'm an 8.5 hour sleeper. If I try to sleep 7 hours every single day, I would get less and less efficient and happy and less productive. And that's just the nature of sleep. And yet I sleep 8.5 hours every day and I can run my business. I can be a full-time clinician. I can raise two kids. I can have, an active kind of hobby life. I can make it all work because I give myself the sleep and the rest that I need. So I think you have to start there and understand that you can't do the comparison game. You just can't. The second thing that I will say is one of the key parts of burnout that I see are people that get the message of you must hustle and learn to get by on less sleep. And based on all the data that we have, you actually cannot get accustomed to sleeping less. No matter how you feel or what people tell you, you can't get accustomed to sleeping less than your sleep need because your brain keeps track and your brain develops a sleep debt and we become more cognitively impaired the longer we're sleep deprived, even if we don't feel it, even if we don't necessarily subjectively feel that our sleepiness is getting worse. Objective testing, particularly for prolonged attention, shows that we are getting worse. So just know that you can't get accustomed to sleep deprivation. You can't just, force yourself to do something that we're not built to do biologically. And that's important to know. And then the last part is if you prioritize sleep, almost everything during the daytime improves. Your motivation improves. Your energy improves. Your mental clarity improves. Your relationships with others, any mental or physical condition usually worsens with sleep deprivation. So you're just setting yourself up for success if you prioritize your sleep as a foundation for all that you do.
Wow. I wish that I had that segment just verbally said to me, given in a handout at some medical training orientation, maybe, and given the support for that. And it's so good. And so you're saying that all those influencer reels that start with the alarm clock hitting at 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m., they're not for everyone?
Gosh, it's not for everybody. If you're an early bird and you go to bed at 8 p.m. and wake up at 4 a.m. and that works for you, fantastic. But the number of people that are truly short sleepers, and by that I mean can actually get by on 6 hours of sleep or less, is way less than 1% of the population. You are likely not a short sleeper, no matter how much you would like to be. So if you need coffee to feel more alert, if you are having that dip at noontime where it's hard to stay focused and you're trying to get by on 6 hours, chances are you are not a short sleeper. And it tends to run in families. We've actually found the genetic change. And so if you have members in your family that are also naturally short sleepers, yes, you might be one. But if you don't, chances are you're in the normal bin, 7 to 9 hours, somewhere in between that range.
Wow. I feel like I might be a short sleeper, but my whole thing is I can wake early, but I cannot be awake at night. I cannot pull those like all-nighters to study. And so that's interesting. I know that I'm surrounded by people who absolutely are not on the short, but yes, maybe other people in my family. So I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and you certainly sounds like you have, not to analyze your sleep physiology, but people have different chronotypes, which is where their body clock is set. And for those that have an easy time waking up early but have a hard time staying up late, you likely have an early chronotype, a morning bird chronotype, where your body naturally gets sleepy early and wakes up early. The envy of everybody in medicine, the early chronotype.
Except when you're on MICU nights, right?
Yes, then it's a disaster.
That's a
Yeah.
disaster. Is there something, I love that you brought the chronotypes in. Is there something as a human who could be okay staying up late and waking up early as well?
Yeah, there's actually if you're staying up late and waking up early, again, if you're less than the 7 hours, then only if you're a short sleeper. But either you're delayed, early, or somewhere in between, where you go to bed at 10 o'clock and wake up at 6, so you have a typical kind of 8 hour, give or take an hour kind of window.
Yeah.
So there's no circadian rhythm that works on a late at night and an early in the morning. It's either or,
It's either
just
or.
shifted in one direction or the other.
So I love how for most of my life I've been trying to fight physiology and taking the internal blame that it's a me problem, that I'm not perfect, where it's actually physiology.
Yes, and this is also where so many people get frustrated, for example, if they can't sleep and they have insomnia. There's lots of stories where people have been told, okay, you have insomnia, you can't sleep, it's hard to wake up early. And what they actually have is a delayed body clock, a circadian rhythm issue, where if you let them sleep whenever they want to, they sleep just fine. They just want to go to bed at 1 o'clock and wake up at 10 in the morning. And if you let them do what their body's physiology does, they'd have a great night of sleep. It's just that we live in a world where we have to usually wake up at a certain time due to social and work obligations. And so it might cut what your natural timing is short and thus lead you to sleep deprivation.
Many people, like, we're so out of tune with our body, from our body, doing all the things at work, et cetera, and we don't even know which type we might be. So what advice would you give to
Mhm.
somebody to just like pause and check in, okay, this is how much sleep you likely need? Is there a
Mhm.
good way that for us to assess that?
Yeah, if you feel like you're already chronically sleep deprived, the goal is to try to extend your sleep window, the amount of opportunity you give yourself to sleep. And so let's say you're like, yeah, I know I'm tired, I have a really hard time waking up, I know I haven't been getting the amount of sleep that I need. I say start somewhere if you can, if you have the flexibility, between 9 to 9.5 hours of in-bed sleep opportunity, and see how much of that you're filling up. And then as you pay off your sleep debt, the amount of time you need to sleep to wake up naturally feeling well should decrease over time, and you should settle at your sleep need. So we don't want to keep the window of sleep large. We want to keep it narrowed down to what we think our sleep need is. So then over time you start to shrink it. If you find yourself waking up too early or having too much awakenings at nighttime, that's when you start to narrow down your sleep window and try to hone in on what your need is. But the goal is you fall asleep within about 15, 20 minutes at night without much of a struggle, without too much, anxiety or pressure around it. And you wake up before your alarm clock goes off in the morning. That is the goal for sleep scheduling.
This is really helpful. And I feel like from where I started, I think I'm doing a better job now. That's good to hear.
Great. Kudos to you. Sleep is hard. Everybody's like, give me like the magic magnesium pill, right?
Yeah.
Sleep is hard. Sleep takes work. It's just like, diet and exercise. It takes consistent effort to get it to the place where it needs to be. So you shouldn't feel like a failure if, this week things aren't working well. It's a long game, it's a marathon. So take your time, make slow, steady changes to get things in the right direction, and then try to find motivation to stick with it. And you will reap the benefits down the road.
I love everything about that. Especially, I feel that for me, in context of what you're sharing, there was a large part in which I had to give permission to myself to be able to sleep. Being raised in like a dual physician household that just not
Mm,
modeled healthy sleep patterns growing up, and now being
mhm.
okay with like, it's okay, I can sleep. That was a big part of it. So I appreciate you sharing that. Talking on those same
Yeah.
lines, I
Mhm.
am exploring perfectionism, and I am exploring how perfectionism impacts our health in different ways. Sleep is one of those areas where this pattern seems pretty consistent. Here's what I
Mhm.
have come up with, not myself, but researching the data. What stands out in the data is that not just the high standards that we have for ourselves, more so the self critical, mistake focused side of perfectionism that seems most tied to this phenomenon of insomnia. I'll share a 2023 meta-analysis in sleep health, which shared that more than 10,000 participants, perfectionistic concerns were linked with worse insomnia severity and poorer sleep quality. I'd love to hear your thoughts surrounding that.
I'll give you my overarching statement about sleep, which is sleep is important, but it's not important enough to lose sleep over. And let me kind of break this down, which is those that do have this perfectionist mentality will naturally also want to create a system in their day, including their sleep, that is perfect. They want to have the perfect sleep environment, perfect temperature, and they strive perhaps to find all of these things. And they might get increasingly frustrated if sleep does not come easily and naturally, despite them doing all these underlying things. The goal of sleep is that it should be kind of a welcome friend at nighttime, not something that you're battling to try to get to take hold of your brain, because we know that's how sleep works. And so as a sleep physician, sometimes I am trying to take pressure off of people that have these perfectionist or maybe anxious tendencies at night. And I tell them, even as a sleep doctor, let's actually take the importance away from sleep. Let's take some of this power away from sleep. It's important, but it's not really that important. And sometimes just hearing those words takes the pressure off to say, yes, okay, it's important, but my brain has ways of taking care of itself. My brain has ways of keeping track. If I had a bad night last night, tonight should get easier. So I say take some of the pressure off. I also say that from a sleep physiology standpoint for adults, you should be waking up in the middle of the night. And everybody kind of looks at me weird. Like, what? I shouldn't just be sleeping in a solid 8-hour chunk and wake up ready to run a marathon in the morning? No. Waking up is a natural, normal part. Every human being wakes up multiple times at night. All of us do. That's a normal part of our sleep physiology. So if you have that 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. awakening, you look around, you're like, yep, I'm awake. Maybe you go to the bathroom, you come back in bed, you relax for a few minutes, and then you slowly fall back asleep. That's okay. You don't have to be asleep 100% of the time. In fact, you shouldn't be asleep 100% of the time that you're in bed. That's a sign of sleep deprivation or poor quality sleep. So give yourself some grace. It's okay. Now, by all means, look for underlying sleep disorders. If you have sleep apnea, if you have restless leg, these things should be diagnosed and treated, right? But if you feel like you're doing okay and you don't have an underlying sleep disorder, give yourself some grace when it comes to trying to perfect your sleep and be okay with a little bit of imperfection.
I'm taking a deep breath and holding on to everything that you've shared. That was really helpful.
Great, great.
I want to ask a little bit about this is a quick question about your social media journey. And my
Sure.
question really is what propelled you to start that? And you have such a robust following and you are working full time and you're developing this amazing smart crib. And then I see you
Yeah.
on social media all the time and you have 2 kids. So you have the perfect life, Dr. Kansagra.
Well, it's because I sleep 8.5 hours every day, so I can work in all of these things. So I will tell you that I started on social media back when, this was probably 20 years ago in the heyday of Twitter, what was formerly Twitter. And the platform originally was to help give medical advice for students that are interested in a field of medicine. And it quickly caught on, and I realized it was a nice platform to get the message out about things that are important. And then over time, I shifted towards sleep. Things kind of changed a bit on the Twitter/X side. And so I spent more time on Instagram and TikTok. And on both platforms, it was a single reel that then developed a much larger following that then kind of persisted, and 2 different reels. So you really you never know what's going to hit and what's not. But I found it as a welcoming place for sleep-based and for science-based sleep information with people that ask lots of savvy and nuanced questions. And I feel like I have much more reach than any paper that I've ever published in my life, right? In academia, we were like, you get this, we were beaten on the research stick. You have to just sit in your office and produce tons of research. And I'm like, well, it's not going to have an impact unless people are actually hearing about it. And so I try to use the platform to share the sleep message so that I can impact a larger group of people than I could with just my research or even in my clinic.
So inspiring. How can we learn more about your work and support what you're doing? Follow all the goodness. the reminders to actually go to sleep when you're watching the reel. And actually
Yeah,
buy
it's ironic.
Lullaby.
Yeah, it's ironic that I have to use social media to tell you to put social media away and go to sleep. But yeah, you can find me anywhere social media is consumed. I'm that sleep doc is my handle everywhere. And then Lullaby, yeah, lullaby.com. If you're interested in learning more about our mattress, go check it out. And yeah, let me know if you have questions.
This was so insightful. Thank you so much for your time and for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving.